Hi, I'm Peter from Coffee Parts, and today I'm here with Ben Agresta from Anfim Australia, looking at the Anfim range, to work out which Anfim is best for you. Ben, welcome to the channel. You've been part of Anfim Australia for quite a while now. We've been working together for a little bit of time.
Yeah, thanks Pedro. Yeah, it's been 9+ years working with Anfim, and the Pratica has actually come into the Anfim range nearly 4 years ago, and it's been a great intro into the range, sitting at roughly your 20 kilo accounts. Some great features that I really love about the Pratica is it's low retention. It's 3.6 low retention that it holds. How quick with its 65mm burr set, and how quiet it is. Really great for offices, your home. So there's some main features that I really like about the Pratica.
So talking about offices and home, there is a shorter hopper you can get to this to get it to more like a low level profile. Just say there's a cupboard on top or something like that.
There is a small hopper that comes with the Pratica, which, as you said, will shorten the height, to fit into a small cupboard space or anything like that. And because of how the fan connects to the motor, you actually are getting that air intake from underneath the grinder. So you can have it right up against the back of the wall. That's
really cool. Now, this unit was done part of the Enro Group as a collaboration. So Enro Group have Malconic, Ditting and Anfim, and they've kind of built this specifically as a collaboration between the brands and kind of picked elements of each brand that worked well and kind of formed this grinder. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. So I'm sure you can tell that they look fairly similar.
Yep.
But things like your cradle, which they've got also in the Anfim range.
Yep.
The spout, which you'll see in some of the Malconic range. So they've kind of used different features to build this great grinder.
So this grinder, 65mm blades, is quite fast, quite consistent, quite fluffy. We've actually done a review on this grinder. If you click here, you can have an in-depth review of this unit. Right now, it's giving it an overview, but really it is kind of that up to 20 kilo account, cafe, secondary grinder on the bigger cafe for like a decaf or a different blend, home, office. That's where this grinder sits in the range, right?
Definitely does. Another feature I thought to mention as well is how easy it is to navigate through its touch screen, setting your recipes and stuff like that. So very user-friendly, which again, perfect for your office.
Especially because on this one, it has up to 6 modes, and you can put the pictures that represent your single double spout, maybe 2 different doubles for 18 and 20 grams, naked, dosing cups. So if you do have multiple different people wanting different things in, say, an office environment, weaker coffees or whatever, you can set that up quite easily.
Yeah, definitely can.
And you mentioned how user-friendly it is. Even with a dialing in the grind, it is a stepless grind, so you can move it just as you need to really get that grind adjustment. That's a big thing. A lot of grinders are stepless, but it's how easy it is to really move it across as simply and move whatever you need.
Yeah. One thing that they did bring into the grinder, which is the paddle style micro adjustment, so you can see where you actually are moving that dial, and with your numbers across the top lid, that's going to help you navigate.
That was obviously part of the collaboration with Malconic, that, and the screen looked very Malconic. When you move up the Anfim range, you're going to go into that worm adjustment, which we'll see in the next.
Definitely.
The next one up being the Scody.
Definitely.
So this sits between the Pratica and the Anfim SP2, but it's on the same body line as the SP2. So do you want to tell me a little bit about this machine and kind of where it fits, who's it for, that kind of journey?
Definitely. So the Scody 2 is around that 30-35 kilo per week. You'll see with the Scody, you'll see with its one fan, that's how cool itself with the motor. Obviously, as you mentioned, with the traditional look of that square Anfim, which has been around for a very long time.
With the look, they've kept the traditional look and kind of honored that, and they've allowed the Scody and the SP to have the same look, so you can bank them up and they kind of still have the same look when you have a different functionality. So call it your SP, which is the next one up for your main blend, and this for a secondary blend. Or if you're not as a busy cafe, 30-35 kilo a week, which is still kind of cool, you can just use this Scody, right?
Yeah, definitely. We tend to see this occasionally sit next to, like you said, the SP2 running its blend.
Yep.
This would be great in a scenario where you are doing a lot of single origin coffee. So yeah, it partners with the SP2 and keeps that flow effect with the machine and the grinders.
So talking about blades, they are 75mm blade, same as the SP2, obviously up from the 65 off the Pratica, but the geometry to this and the SP are different. On this one, you got the hardened steel and the titanium blades. Do you want to tell me the difference between the two blades and why someone would pick one or the other?
Yeah, definitely. So the hardened steel gives a rating at about 800 kilos, and your titanium will sit at about 2 to 2.5 tons. You'll notice that there's a difference within color.
Yep.
But what we find is your hardened steel burr would be great in a scenario where you want to partner that up with your servicing.
Yep.
You want to match that 800 kilos
Yep.
to the machine service.
Yep.
The 2.5 ton
Yep.
titanium burr, great for volume. You're
Yep.
going to get that longer life with those titanium burrs.
I also know sometimes when people are a little bit more remote, they might go for the titanium just because it's sometimes a bit harder for them to get into a service cycle. They've got a little bit more limited action. They're a little bit more limited in the availability of service technicians.
Definitely.
In saying that, these grinders are quite simple from that respect. For someone to be able to maintain, change the burrs, clean the chute, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Another cool feature you kind of see carry across the Anfim range, now that they're part of the Henro group, is the cradle. That cradle really does hold the portafilter well. And not only does it hold the portafilter for hand-free operation, the spout there gives that coffee right to the center. And that's something cool. You do see that across the range, but it is something cool. One noticeable difference between this and the SP is the switch here. So with this one, we still got that mechanical switch. With the SP2 in the Plus, which is the latest version, you got that proximity sensor. So in a high volume environment, the proximity sensor is good. That it doesn't build up much coffee and it just kind of works a little bit better. But for a 35-40 kilo account, this works really well.
Definitely. Yeah, like you mentioned, the stainless steel switch is how you activate your dose. You can also, there is 3 different functions with the Scody. You can use it in a mode where you pull away from the switch, it will stop the dose. You can single touch your activation switch, which will pour your whole dose. Really great for your dosing cups and your platforms. Or you can also run it through the touchpad there on the top right-hand corner of the grinder. So those 3 functionalities and settings help the user carry on their flow with espresso.
And now with this one, or this and the SP, you've got the purge button down the bottom here, and you've also got the ability to add the scale tray. And what that means is you can either easily use portafilters, or you can use a scale with a dosing cup. And that's been kind of a feature that's been heavily wanted by the Australian market, and one that you see optioned up a lot. Now that scale tray is an optional extra, but and obviously the scale too. But it is something you do see being optioned out quite often, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Australian market is fairly sophisticated, and we do try and be as accurate as possible. And things like your scale and your dosing cups are a really good tool to hit your accurate, or are really great tools to hit the mark on being so accurate. So Anfim is really great to attach those tools to it.
So far we've got the Pratica, which is kind of your entry level in the Anfim range, 65mm blades, around the 20 kilo mark. Then you've got the Scody, which has gone for that traditional look. Now 75mm blades, 30 to 40 kilo account, and you're starting to have the ability of putting the scale tray, the clump crusher insides out of metal. It's really easy to change. And next we're going to look at the SP2, which in this case the Plus, but it really is the hero of the range. So should we get that up and look at how that varies from this one?
Let's do it.
Done. The Anfim SP2 Plus. Now, this is the hero of the range. We've got it here in white. It does come in black, same with the Scody, which comes in white and black. And this machine is quite special to Anfim and to Australia. So do you want to kind of dive in what made this machine special to the Australian market?
Yeah, definitely. So I think why the SP2 fits so well in the Australian market is its high volume.
Yep.
Obviously in the mornings we've got that busy rush. You know, we've got people wanting to line up and get their morning coffee and morning fix. So the Anfim SP2 is built for its high volume and to get through the morning rush and your high peaks of coffee.
So this machine was actually something that, from what I've heard, around 2011 at Host, they were talking to you guys here in Australia, Anfim were there, and they're kind of working out how they could best basically gel a machine into the Australian market. They looked at two machines at the time and kind of made this.
Yeah.
You talked about high volume. That's to do with the blade geometry. It's still 75 like the Scody, but now running its own custom geometry.
Correct.
Only in the titanium. And you've got your twin fans in the back, effectively one drawing air in and one pushing the air out. Is that right?
That's correct. So you'll notice on the back,
Yep.
there will be two fans.
Yep.
One will suck in air
Yep.
with the filter and
Yep.
one will push air out, and it will
Yep.
give that circular motion to cool the motor down in those busy periods, mainly in the mornings.
And that means also you can bank these up. So just say you needed multiple blends or super busy cafe, there's quite a few different reasons, single origins, blend, coffee of the day. You can pair these up. Talking about volume, these are kind of made for a cafe doing up to about 10 kilos a day, 10 to 15. So you're really talking about 80 to 100 kind of range of volume compared to the Scody, which was 35 to 40. So, and not only in doing that, they've run some similarities. So you still have the worm adjustment, stepless. You still have the same cradle, which is kind of like one of my favorite features. It just holds that portafilter so neatly. But just like the Scody, you got the ability to put the scale cradle in. Now this is an optional extra and the scale's an extra too, but you can put that cradle in so you can run it not only with a portafilter, but with a dosing cup.
That's correct.
And that's been quite popular in the Australian market because you can really kind of dial in your 20 grams, make sure it's measuring correctly. You can just hit that button just to give that extra little bit if it's just short, because you do have that 0.5 gram variance. We actually did a full video review on this. You can click here with Sal, who actually works with you. In our video, it went 19.9, 20 spot on, 20 spot on. But realistically, there's probably gonna be more like a 0.5 gram variance throughout the day.
Yeah, there may be some variance, but what they've really refined in is that clump crusher. And in that spout area where the gaps within its clump crusher evenly distribute so the coffee works its way through and you're gonna get pretty accurate spot on doses.
And that fluffy kind of grind.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing is that's actually something that's super easy to clean out. It's just those two screws, comes out, the spout comes out, and you've got the clump crusher behind that just pulls out, give it a clean that chamber out with a brush, put it all back together. Something that only takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you're really tired. And what that means is you don't really have that inertia to do at the end of the day. You can do that just as a part, end of the day, clean that crusher out. And what that means, you don't have a buildup of fines, you don't have a buildup of oil residue in there, and it really keeps things flowing neatly. Talking about end of the day, with this grinder, a cool feature, and it happens in the Scody too, is the way the hopper sits. So removing those 3 screws, it kind of lifts up and it sits on the counter. So at the end of the day, you tend to pour your coffee out into a storage container to store it overnight, and that makes it the workflow really easy. Pull it out, put it in. If you get caught up doing something else, not a big deal. Compared to other grinders that have like a cone hopper, it doesn't really sit and you have to really do just that one task. So that's something I've always found kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Anfim have tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. Like you mentioned with the hopper, it is really easy to slide out the tray, hold your coffee, keeping it fresh for the next morning, because we don't want to throw that away. And cleaning that burr chamber is really easy and accessible. Some features that I really love that the SP2 Plus actually has is its safety switches. So when you do actually remove that hopper, if you are tired, it will actually safety switch off the grinder for you. And likewise with the spout.
And talking about ease of use, from a technician or service perspective, if you do need to service them, the whole back panel opens up and it's so easy to access those fans. It's something you can really just service it almost like in a heartbeat. Like not a heartbeat as such, but a 30-minute service has gone down to a 10-minute service. And in a busy cafe, that makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Coming from a technical background, being tech friendly is a big plus, and the Anfim SP2 does that.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, that back panel with the removal of 6 screws will fold back, easy access to clean the fans, and if needed to replace them.
So when it comes to ease of use, especially with the fans, cleaning that filter really is as simple as pulling the cover off, cleaning the filter, pulling the cover off, cleaning the filter, and popping that cover back on. It really is simple. And I like simple when it comes, especially in a work environment where the simpler it is, the more work you get done. And you just, at the end of the day, you're just not finishing off tired.
Definitely. I think making things simpler makes you focus on the real needs of, you know, interacting with your customers, making sure that you're spot on with how the espresso is pouring out, and your milk, and getting that texture right. So having the grinder being simple for you makes you focus on those other areas that you can focus on.
Something that's a little bit more unspoken, but we deal with a lot of roasters, and one reason they do like this grinder is it travels well. Sometimes roasters have to move the grinders between cafes, between accounts for whatever reason. One cafe is just suddenly doing more volume, and they just travel well in cars.
With the SP2, they have built them in a way that you can move them around, and they're really easy to travel. So yeah, moving them from place to place isn't so bad. But keeping in mind that it is a grinder, and yeah, you want to look after it. And
you want to move them in a vertical position, not lie them down. But it is kind of cool that it is so solid and robust.
Definitely.
We've actually done a full video of this grinder. You can actually click here, and where you see it grinding into the portafilter, onto the scale support, how the clump crusher is cleaned, you just dive in and see this grinder in action. To wrap things up, there's 3 models in the line. You've got the Pratica, the Scody, and the Anfim SP2 Plus, with the differences being 65ml, 20 kilo count for the Pratica, 35 to 40 kilo count, 75ml on the Scody, and really your 80 to 100, 120 kilo count on the SP2. That does not mean if you have a 30 kilo count, you can't put an SP2. Of course, the better grinder you can put in there, the better the results you're gonna get. But that's kind of where their ranges sit, with the Pratica also being kind of that home office low volume cafe, all the way to specialty World Barista Comp, top of the game grinder on the SP2 Plus. And that's how the range sits. Ben, thank you for coming in today and talking about the Anfim range with me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for having me and letting me go through each one of the models in the Anfim range.
Now, there are 3 models, so there may be more questions. If you have a question for me or Ben, hit us up in the comments below, or even if you just want to say hi. And like always, if this video has brought you value, hit that thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Thank you again.